Yeah, okay, I did go and see it. Yeah, okay, I did go and see it. It's a movie for girls, right? It's been feminized. In the moment, I had a buzz, yeah. I heard the phone ringing when the Spyglass production logo came on at the beginning. The phone was ringing when the haunting, all that was handled brilliantly. They've become movies for girls. They've become feminized because the violence has become glamorized. Now you've got close-ups of the blade going into people's stomachs, and you've got their reactions. Now it's become, you've got to get an injury to get points. To be a worthy character, they have to now have injury to themselves, whereas before it was about avoiding injury, getting as little injury as possible. It's become a Jason movie, it's become a Friday the 13th movie, but with Ghostface in it. Whoever made this movie, they've made Ghostface an actual figure, a player in the movie. Like I say, they've morphed from what they used to be. Ghostface used to be, Ghostface, including in part 5 as well, used to be like a ghostly character, a character in which would have its own, almost a magical, almost a mystical character. Not supernatural, but almost, well, almost, you wouldn't know exactly where he was, and did he have a body underneath that cloak, because he would always dodge in and out. He would keep in the peripheral, yeah? Even in the actual screenplay, he would keep in the peripheral, not just the way the movie was edited. Now it's edited and it's made in respect of actually him being an actual player. The scenes where he is in edit have been elongated. The direction has been crafted to multi-angle shots on him to, as I say, to make him almost a player in the movie. Whereas, like I said before, he was simply just a peripheral character, and which used to fox, which used to try and outplay and outmaneuver the actual people in the movie, the actual folk in the movie. He's become almost like an actual a solid standing figure in the movie. The scene where in the grocery store, where he takes the gun from the shopkeeper, that was not far too long, but it was in that scene where Ghostface, he had a running narrative. His persona had a running narrative, instead of simply being in the peripheral. Was he there? Was he there? Was he behind? Was he behind backstage, right? But actually centre place. Whereas before, it wasn't like that. It was, as I've just said, peripheral. Like in the scene with Gail Weathers, where Gail Weathers is in her apartment getting chased down. We see Ghostface, his individual manoeuvres and movements. We see his play, his MO, if you will. The Gail Weathers. And we got full perspective of both characters, when we used to just get the physical representation of the actors in the movie, and Ghostface was always peripheral. We got both, and we got will Ghostface win? Will Gail Weathers win? We got full perspective, full 360 perspective of both characters. Gail v Ghostface. So the question now is, did I enjoy it? I enjoyed going to the cinema to see a Scream movie. I enjoyed sitting down, hearing the and I would hate not to get that kind of buzz again in my seat. That was handled brilliantly. That morphed into a phone, the ringing of a phone. Very traditional Scream. Going into the opening sequence. Filmed and in a way perfectly for Scream, the traditional style of a Scream movie. It was directed, classy. You would think Wes was behind the camera. It was stylish, it was clever, it was cunning, it was everything which the Scream movie should be. Witty, beat. Very scary, and it was horrific, ended very horrific, in a horrific manner in which we didn't see the blade, but we were left, it was left to our imagination, the extremity of the gore, and the skill in the directing, to our imaginations, the viewers' imaginations, and that's how the Scream movies always were. And I would hate not to get that kind of buzz again in my seat. If it carried on like that, then yeah, I would have missed it, but it didn't. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that I was let down by it. What I will say is, after the movie, right, when I was in the washroom afterwards, yeah, said to the fella there was a fella, we were all pouring in after we'd seen the movie, and I asked him, what did you think of it? And he said, yeah, I loved it, it was better than the previous one. And I said immediately, well, there was no Sydney in it. And then he doubted his opinion. I had to stop him and said, look, no, if that's the way you think, then that's the way you think, so be it. I did immediately say to him, well, Sydney Prescott wasn't in it. I was unhappy with the way the movie continued, the way it basically turned into a Friday film. We saw far too much, when really the Scream movies, it was all, we saw in the manner of the way they were directed, yeah? The way the screenplay was written, in the manner in which they were directed, we saw through that, not actually through what we actually saw through the eyes. Which is why I say I relate it to a Friday movie, very much so, and I'll stand by that. If Sydney Prescott was in it, would it have been the same? Would it have still have turned into a Friday movie, Friday the 13th movie, in my opinion? Well, we never got to see that, did we? Now I'll move on to my thoughts on the Sydney Prescott not being in it, and also I'll talk about Kirby being in it, right? Right, I get it, it had to be a different kind of movie because Sydney Prescott wasn't in it, I get it. It had to be a different movie. That's possibly why they left Woodsboro, because the makers of the movie knew that. But would I have preferred Sydney Prescott to have been in it? Yeah, sure, but that people do age, get older. How long can Sydney Prescott, the character of Sydney Prescott, be the final girl for? How long can she keep being in these movies for? A la the Halloween movies, where the character of Laurie Strode should never have been brought back. She did die in Halloween Resurrection in the introduction sequence to that movie. They should never have brought her back, but would people have gone to the cinema to see a reboot of the Halloween movie without the character of Laurie Strode being in it? Would they have? So I'm caught in the middle with Scream 6. I'm caught right in the middle with it. The first 20 minutes were fantastic, and the morphing of the traditional Scream movie into a slasher movie, allowing for the retconning, therefore allowing for the retconning of characters from previous installments. Kirby. I was buzzing up to the point where Kirby entered the movie. I was well happy up to that point. I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, I was already thinking, yeah, there's something more modern about this movie. It wasn't a traditional Scream movie. We were already getting explicit gore, visual explicit gore. Look, I'll say I was going along with the ride when Kirby entered the frame. Like I say, I wasn't expecting it. To be honest with you, that character could have been played by any actress, because I certainly didn't recognise her from part 4. I watched part 4, went to the movies to see it. Yeah, she could have been played by anyone. She spoke like she was chewing gum, and or had a small orange in the side of her face. she was holding like a tangerine in the inner side, on the lower side of one of her cheeks. She was like chewing on a lemon as she spoke, and that never ever altered. Like, it was like all the time. Is that how New York people talk? Was that put on deliberately, or simply is that the way the actress talks? Like, she had like she was sucking on a lemon. That's how it was. And without chewing on it, it was just like as if she was just like holding that item in the lower side of her jaw. And period. That's how the actress played throughout. Actually, like she was caught eating something, and she'd stuffed the rest of it in her mouth to hold it in her mouth. Well, that certainly struck me. Suddenly, out the blue, the actress came into the movie, into the frame, thinking how I didn't recognise her, and the way she spoke, her manner as she spoke. But moving on, I thought it was genius. Her character, she was a police officer. I thought simply that was genius. I was certainly wondering, thinking, well, how is she going to be introduced into the movie? You watch my Thoughts Thus video, which I will link in the description. I thought she might have been a guest on Courtney Cox's show in regards to the murders, and she was simply called upon to give her experience to the host, Gail Weathers. But I didn't think, I wasn't thinking ahead. I wasn't thinking about what my her occupation be, and that's simply because I think because I saw her as a student in part 4. I think that's why I wasn't thinking of the occupation side naively. I will say yes, partially impressed by the retconning in regards to this franchise with Kirby so far. Partly impressed, even though I would say I would sooner have had a movie with Sidney Prescott in it, because that was my initial instinct when I came out the screening, when I was in the washroom afterward. I wonder how the makers of these movies going forward are going to tackle that, because they're going to have to tackle it. Exactly, aka with the Halloween franchise, how they're going to be able to go forward with that without Laurie Strode. Right, I'll talk about Courtney Cox's face now, Gail Weathers' face. How she appeared in this movie, coming on from Scream 5. Right, I'll give you my background with Courtney Cox, right. I will say, it is a crying shame the way she looks, right. Absolute crying shame, right. In the movie Cocoon, if you've seen that movie, when I was a kid, hiring out VHS, back in the mid-80s, it was this movie. It was set in an old people's home, a group of old folk. In this pensioners' home, pensioners' village, one of the nurses was played by Courtney Cox. And she must have been about 17, 18. She must have been barely legal. She was still a kid, but she was behaving like an adult in this movie, but you could tell she was still a kid. Stunning, the most delightful little thing in that movie. That is what I certainly remember Cocoon for being, that movie for being. The movie in which Courtney Cox was in. Whether it was her first role or not, I don't know. And she was brilliant in it, but she was always, she's always been the most delightful, just the most wonderful looking young woman I've always known her as being. We've come along to the Scream movies, Scream 1 and Scream 2. She had the most fabulous pair of legs in Scream 1. She had the slickest hair and makeup in the second one. The look of her in the second one, you could just pick her up and put her on your mantelpiece, you know. I see her in Scream 3, and to be honest with you, it just had dietary medicine and over-the-top skincare and dietary pills and formulas written all over her. Did look desperate in that movie. All the memes which are used to take the P out of Courtney Cox are all depicted from Scream 3, where she's got that yellow outfit on and this scrawny looking face and this stupid looking wig, which you would only see on a mannequin in the back end of a little theatre group, yeah. I mean, they're not going to not hire her, are they? Wes isn't not going to hire her to play the part of Gail Weathers, is he? When she's still probably, yeah, she would have been younger than I am now at the time. So yeah, she's got through, hasn't she? And I was feeling disappointed and gutted and thinking, why, girl? Absolutely why? Crying shame. And absolute crying shame. Part 4 onwards, there was just nothing down for Courtney Cox, in my opinion, for all and sundry. And so to the point where she didn't look like Courtney Cox. She was not even in the image of Courtney Cox. Yeah, it completely disheartened me. Right, I'll touch on the finale, the unmasking, yeah, the unveiling of who it was at the end, who the killers were at the end, the unveiling stroke unmasking, right, of the killers, which is what we got here in Scream 6. Or should I say an announcing. So we got so I will discuss the announcing stroke unveiling stroke unmasking of the killers here in part 6. Did it work? Or didn't it work? Yeah, I got taken along with it. Yeah, it did work. Yeah, it's what I would expect to see at the end of a Scream movie. Yeah, it was cohesive. Right? It ran narrative from A to Z until the credits rolled. Well, it did work for me, the ending did, yeah. I thought the inclusion of the cute boyfriend was brilliant, top marks for that. Absolutely brilliant, right, top marks. Where he was standing there on the subway like a gorilla. Oh, fantastic for trying, well done for trying. That just came out of nowhere, and that was dead sweet. Dead sweet. I'm not going to say about, I could go on to further in regards to the boyfriend, but I don't want to because of spoilers. I don't want to ruin the movie. Yeah, people walking away at the end with serious wounds to the body where they would normally be on their backs, completely incapacitated. You can't be having that in Scream movies. You just can't. One of them had serious, had a blade right through their stomach, possibly coming out the other side, and they were walking away at the end, completely walking away down the road, aka into the sunset, as if they, like say, they just suffered like a scratch in the kitchen. You can't be having people walking away into the sunset after a 10-inch blade has just gone right through the centre of their body, possibly coming out the other side. You just can't have that in Scream movies. You can't have that. That's not what Scream movies were about. They were never about that. Either survived or you never. You can't have it both ways, because you start to glamorise violence, and then they become comical, and they no longer become Scream movies. You guys who make these movies are going to have to think of a way of doing it so we can return to the cunning and the outwitting to survive Ghostface. You're going to have to find a way to do it. But yeah, the cute boyfriend, smart addition. I think he was great. I think it was great. I think him and Samantha worked really, really well. Less of the gore to the eye, right? Keep to the way the style of the introduction of Scream 6 was made, was directed and written. Keep to that, where the gore, we see it in our imagination. We see the edge of the gore, but we don't actually see the blade going in. Because then you start getting into gore porn and slasher movie territory, and that's not what Scream movies are. One time to the one time.
Hello. This is documentation of Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. Yes. I don't know the date, but it feels like Friday the 13th.
Right. There, I'll leave it. Knows how this edit's gonna go. Alright, cheers.